So thank you everyone and welcome to this webinar. As you can see from our title, it's about a new program for women on temporary visas who are experiencing domestic and family violence. My name is Natalie and I'm from the Legal Aid Domestic Violence Unit, and I'm joined today by Seema from the Australian Red Cross. Seema unfortunately doesn't have a video camera today, so you'll just be able to hear her on audio. And also I've got Mariam Hamoudi with me, and she's from the Legal Aid Immigration team. So I might ask you both just to introduce yourselves first and a little bit about your roles. Mariam, do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. Hello, everyone. Thanks again for joining us. So like Natalie said, my name is Mariam and I am a solicitor with the immigration team at Legal Aid. My role with the immigration team is to specifically provide legal advice and assistance to people on temporary visas experiencing or escaping domestic or family violence. So specifically under this new project that we will be talking about.
Thanks, Mariam. Hi, Seema. Can you introduce yourself and your role? Thank you.
Thanks, Natalie. Good morning, everyone. My name is Seema Verma, and I am the Operations Manager for New South Wales ACT in our Migration Support Program, and have been looking after a couple of different programs, the Restoring Family Links, Support for Trafficked People Program, Emergency Relief, to name a few. Thanks.
Thanks, Seema. And my name is Natalie, and I'm a lawyer in the Domestic Violence Unit at Legal Aid, and I'm also working as part of this program. So my colleagues and I give advice to people about domestic violence issues, family law matters, and I'll explain a bit further how we can help clients. Just a little bit more housekeeping. Unfortunately, we don't have live captions for this webinar today. There will be a recording of the webinar, which will be available through the Legal Aid YouTube channel. So if people can't hear us properly, I guess try and get your sound to work. Otherwise, yeah, I apologize, there's no live captions. We also have some handouts. So there's some PDFs attached to the webinar. So we've got a copy of the slides as well as a flyer about the program from Legal Aid and a flyer from Red Cross. So please have a look at those. And also we'll be doing some polls, some interactive polls, and you will get an email an hour after the webinar with some links and some further information as well. So we'll start in a minute, but before we start, I'd first like to acknowledge that we are broadcasting from Aboriginal land today and pay my respects and acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land today. Thank you. And we're going to do a very quick poll first, and this is just to get an idea of the type of work you do. So you should be able to see on your screen in a minute. We just want to know, I guess, how often do you assist people who are in Australia on temporary visas? Is this the type of work you do all the time, regularly, sometimes, or not, but you're still interested? So I'll just give you a second to do that while okay, thank you. I'll close that off now and share the results with you. So Mariam, you can see, so this might be helpful for your section just to see how often people work with people on temporary visas. So most people, I guess sometimes, and a lot regularly as well. So yeah,
Oh, yeah.
I think it's good.
Very
I
helpful.
guess you're in the right place. So 59% sometimes work with people on temporary visas. So that's good news. Thanks for that, everyone. And so what we're going to do today is, I'm just trying to fix my screen. Yes. So we're going to give an overview of, I guess it's setting the scene first. And this is what Mariam will do first, is talking about family violence and people on temporary visas. So a bit of a background and the statistics and the situation in Australia. Then we're going to launch into an overview of the project that we're talking about today, this new project. So from a legal aid perspective, which is how we can help your clients from the domestic violence unit and also the immigration team. And then Seema will talk specifically about the Red Cross program and the financial support available for people on temporary visas. And again, a big part of all our webinars is really how can you refer clients to legal aid for this assistance and to Red Cross. So we'll talk about how you can refer clients. And again, we'll answer your questions. We'll either answer the questions throughout the webinar or at the end, if we've got time, we'll also answer more questions. So again, I encourage you to type in your questions to the question panel. And I will hand over now to Mariam to talk about domestic violence and temporary visa holders. So thanks very much, Mariam.
Thanks, Natalie. Yeah, so I thought a good way to start today would be to give a quick snapshot on family and domestic violence and temporary visa holders in Australia. As you can see, a recent survey conducted by Monash University found that 33% of migrant women have experienced domestic or family violence. Also, that temporary visa holders reported proportionately higher levels of domestic or family violence compared to Australian citizens. The survey also found that immigration-related abuse and threats were used as part of the controlling behaviours. Also, that 25% of women surveyed said that threats to separate them from their children was used to coerce and control them. And as you can see, only 52% of victim survivors told someone about the domestic or family violence they experienced, which sadly means that about half of temporary visa holders who have experienced domestic violence or family violence never sought help or spoke to anyone about any of their experiences. Next slide, thanks, Natalie. So why do women on temporary visas underreport domestic or family violence? Well, there is a number of reasons, and they include first the lack of information about their rights and knowing how to access and where to access information. There's also fear of authority. Many women on temporary visas come from countries where they feared harm from their own government or the police there. And that fear tends to stay with them. For example, it can be very hard and intimidating for them in Australia to approach the police to make a complaint about the abuse that they are experiencing, or even to approach any government or department agency. Also, for many temporary visa holders, they do not know what constitutes family violence. I see many clients who have the mistaken belief that family violence only means physical abuse or physical violence. There's also pressure from their family and community. Some temporary visa holders come from cultures and backgrounds where leaving a husband or a partner is a great cause of shame to them and their family members. I've come across many clients who have told me that their families have pressured them to stay in the relationship to avoid gossip or shame from the community. I've also had clients who have been disowned by their parents and their families for leaving the abusive relationship and making the complaint to the police. Also, another big reason is language difficulties. As you can see, or as you can imagine, sorry, people on temporary visa holders don't have great English skills, and some abusive partners don't even allow them to study or learn English, and that is a huge barrier to reporting the violence. Also, there's the intimidating and lengthy court and justice processes in a foreign country for them. And finally, there is inadequate capacity or support from services. Next slide, thanks, Natalie. Okay, so now let's look at what happens to a person's visa if they leave the abusive relationship. The answer to that question really depends on a number of things and factors. First, it's really important to know what the particular type of visa the person holds. So is it a temporary visa? Is it a permanent visa? Because that can make a big difference on the impact of the violence or domestic violence. The conditions on that particular visa, and also whether that person has applied for any other further visas while waiting. Next slide, thanks, Natalie. Okay, now if we look at the categories of visas, there are different visa streams, all of which are very different and are made up for a specific purpose and have different conditions. Broadly speaking, visas in Australia can be divided into, as you can see, family-sponsored or family stream visas, like a partner visa or fiancé visa. There's also humanitarian or protection type visas for refugees. There's visitor visas for those coming to Australia to visit as tourists, or work and skilled or student visas. Now, these visas are either permanent that allow for an indefinite stay in Australia, or they could be temporary visas that have a set number of time for the stay in Australia. And now, since this project is about assisting people who are the holders of temporary visas, let's have a quick look at what are the typical temporary visas a person can hold in Australia. So first we have a bridging visa. So this is usually a waiting visa. It is granted to a person based on them waiting for another kind of visa application to be processed. There's a temporary protection visa, so either a 3-year temporary protection or a 5-year safe haven enterprise visa. These visas are only granted to people or to, refugees who have come to Australia by boat. It could also be a temporary work visa, so someone here is working and it's a temporary work visa, a student visa. There are temporary visas for New Zealand citizens or visas for partners of New Zealand citizens. Again, visitor visa, someone here who's a tourist or has come on a visit. And finally, a temporary partner or the fiancé visas. Thanks, Natalie. Next slide. All right. So what impact does domestic violence have on a woman's or a person's visa status? Well, it can have a huge effect on the person's visa status. For some temporary visa holders who have experienced domestic violence and are on a partner visa pathway, despite the breakdown of their relationship with their Australian partner, they can still apply for permanent residency under the domestic violence or the family violence provisions. They could also apply for permanent residency if they have children or a child of that relationship. However, eligibility really depends on many factors. There are instances where a person is on a temporary partner visa or on a partner visa pathway, experienced domestic violence, the relationship ended, but they are still not eligible to apply for the permanent residency or apply for the family violence exemption. A classic example of that is of someone who has come to Australia on a fiancé visa, so a temporary fiancé visa. They have not yet gotten married to their partner, and they have not yet applied for the partner visa, the temporary partner visa. In that case, if the relationship ends and that person experiences family violence, unfortunately, they would not be eligible to apply for the family violence provisions or apply for permanent residency. So no two cases are the same, and that is why it is crucial for people to get legal advice as soon as they can about their particular circumstances and their eligibility. Unfortunately, we see many clients, or for many people or women on temporary visas, they will have limited or no options at all to pursue if the relationship ends and they have experienced domestic violence. Next slide. Thanks, Natalie. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, many of the clients I speak to, and at times some support or caseworkers don't exactly know what constitutes family violence under the migration legislation. So I thought we would have a quick look at what family violence is. Regulation 1.21 of the migration regulation says that family violence is any conduct, whether actual or threatened, that causes the victim to be fearful or apprehensive about their own well-being or safety. As you can see, it is not limited to physical violence. It can include a wide range of behaviours, sexual abuse or mistreatment, psychological and emotional abuse, financial abuse, and so on. Manipulative behaviour, stalking, threatening to hurt members of the family, damaging property. So all of these different types of behaviours are considered family or domestic violence under the migration regulation. Thanks, Natalie. Next slide. Okay, now I would like to take a quick look at a case study that I come across quite often in my work under with the immigration team, or particularly under this project. This case study is about Marie. So Marie contacts Legal Aid for advice. She has applied for a partner visa in Australia onshore. She says her husband has told her that he will cancel her visa after their relationship ended and after she'd experienced domestic violence or after leaving the abusive relationship. She asks, once my sponsor decides the relationship is over, can he cancel my partner visa and can this happen at any time? Okay, so the answer to that, well, is no. There's no need for panic. Only the Minister of Immigration, acting through delegates, can cancel a person's visa. Now, the current practice for applicants for partner visas, where the department has become aware, it could be either the sponsoring partner has called the department and told them that they've separated, or the department could have received information from other sources, but the department believes that the relationship has broken down, is they send a letter asking for comment. So long as the department has the person's current contact details, they will receive what is known as a Section 56 request letter that looks like this, and it will say invitation to comment on adverse information, and it will say, you know, that we've received information that your relationship has ended, and the person will be given 28 days to respond to that letter. Okay, next slide. Thanks, Natalie. Okay, so finally, just a few important points that I would like for you to remember or to mention. Early intervention is essential for clients with temporary visas, especially if there is or has been family violence. Second, the evidence requirements for proving family violence are complex, and so again, legal advice and assistance is crucial. Thirdly, professional advice allows for informed choice for client, and it is very important for the client to get advice before contacting Home Affairs at every stage of an application and before lodging any documents. You know, it's very important that they get their documents checked before by a lawyer before they lodge them to the department. And finally, Home Affairs will always give the visa applicant a chance to respond or invitation to comment on any adverse information before making a decision.
Thanks, Mariam. Yeah, I think that sets a really good scene about why this project came about and what we're talking about. So before we talk about the project specifically from Legal Aid and Red Cross points of view, I've got a couple of questions for you, Mariam. Is that okay for me to ask you now?
Yeah, absolutely.
And also, if anyone else has questions about this part that we've just heard, please type those in now. So we've got a question from a worker who says, I deal with material assistance and see many people who are on bridging visas and have been left with the children and no support. And they find that these people have been waiting a long time to get a temporary visa status. So what is the normal time this can take? Mariam, do you see people in that situation?
It really depends on the reason why the person is holding the bridging visa. I mean, a person could be holding a bridging visa for a big number of reasons. They could be waiting for a decision on another application. They could be, would have had a visa refusal or reviewing that decision in the courts or the tribunal. So there's a big different number of reasons why people holding bridging visas, and the time frame it takes for a particular decision to be made on a visa, it really depends on which visa they've applied for. But generally, if we're talking about partner visa applications or the partner visa pathway, so if someone is holding a bridging visa and waiting for a partner visa, decision on a partner visa application, after they've experienced domestic violence and relationship ended and have applied for that exemption, family violence exemption, it can take a year or a little bit more, a little bit less. For some people, it's taken, close to 2 years. It can be quite difficult and it can take a long time. We are seeing some positive indications from the Department of Immigration or Home Affairs that they will try to prioritize domestic violence or family violence applications for partner visa applications.
Okay, thanks for that. As another question, Mariam. So does legal aid support or represent women who need to respond to that Section 56 letter? Because usually
Yes.
this person said that these women are also struggling with financial hardship, so I guess can't afford to pay for a lawyer.
Yes, absolutely. Legal aid, we do provide grants of aid and full representation to women who are on the partner visa pathway and have experienced domestic violence and relationship ended, and they want to apply for that permanent partner visa application. So yeah, we do provide, they should definitely get in touch with us. We can provide them advice, help them apply for the legal aid, and then represent them before the department in that application or responding to that request, and even continuing on and applying for the family violence exemption.
Great, thank you. All right, so now before we talk about the project, we are just going to ask you one more quick poll just about, have you heard about this Red Cross Family and Domestic Violence Financial Assistance Program? Is this a program you have heard of? Okay, I will just give you another second. I'm going to close that poll now and share the results. So Seema, you might be interested to hear, so 58% of people have said yes and 35% have said no. My computer's doing something which is not great timing. So what I've done, unfortunately, is I've turned my camera off just to give the technology a bit of a better chance. So I'll keep going with my section, but I've turned off my camera just for the minute. So hopefully that helps, yes, with the technology. So what I'm talking about now is this project. So colloquially at Legal Aid, we've been calling it the Temporary Visa Project. So that's the title that I've got there. And what it is a partnership between, so in New South Wales, it's a partnership between Legal Aid New South Wales and the Australian Red Cross. It is a state, so we are a statewide program in New South Wales, but this project is also national. And Red Cross have partnered with, in most other states and territories, it's the Women's Legal Services across Australia. So if you've got clients anywhere in Australia, it is a project that's available. So the legal support as well as the financial support that we've been talking about. I believe we're still calling it a pilot program, and it's really to provide integrated legal domestic violence support as well as the financial support for people on temporary visas who are at risk of or experiencing domestic and family violence. I understand that there have been some male clients who've been assisted through the program, but it is primarily, and it was funded as a project for women on temporary visas. The aims of the project are to provide, like I'd mentioned before, a really multidisciplinary wraparound trauma-informed project. And one of the benefits of the domestic violence unit at Legal Aid is that we have social workers and financial counsellors in our team. And we also work closely with services you might have heard of, like the FAS, or Family Advocacy and Support Service, the Women's Domestic Violence Court Advocacy Service, and other social work programs to provide early and effective support. Like Mariam mentioned, one of the really important things when supporting clients in this area is that early intervention. So refer clients to us early to deal with their immigration and also domestic violence and family law issues. We provide legal advice and representation. I know there have been a few questions from people about how Legal Aid provides assistance and if it's free or that kind of thing. So certainly our legal advice is free and available to anyone. So any person on a temporary visa who's experiencing domestic violence can access our service for free. So that's for free legal advice. Then depending if we need to represent them in court matters, so whether that's in the federal court system for immigration matters or family law matters or local court matters, then there might be those, eligibility criteria. So if people can afford to pay for a lawyer, but as we know, a lot of women in these situations are likely to be eligible for legal aid to represent them. So yeah, there are some means and merits tests and eligibility for ongoing representation, but certainly legal advice is free. And that's our key message today, is to refer people to us for free advice. We also are doing sort of education about the project, and we are very happy to come to your organisations if you want more, we call it CLE, or community legal education, for your workers about immigration or family law or domestic violence matters, or talking about the project. We're happy to do that. And also we provide referrals for ongoing sort of case management for legal and non-legal issues. So who can we help as part of this project? And this does overlap with what Mariam was saying before about typical people on typical temporary visas. So basically we can assist. So any person who is on a temporary visa is eligible for assistance under this project. So that includes student visas, the spouse visas, the humanitarian visas, so temporary protection and SHEV visas, visitor visas, and also the New Zealand category visas and bridging visas that we were talking about before. And I believe that there is even an extension recently, and Seema might be talking about this more, where we can also help people who might be in Australia who are not on any visa. So that it has been expanded, I believe, recently. So yeah, any person on a temporary visa we can assist as part of this project. I'll now talk about, I guess, the typical legal issues that we can help with. So immigration law issues, so generally what will happen is if you refer a client to this project, they will talk to one of our lawyers in the domestic violence unit first, who does have a bit of an idea and can advise about immigration law issues. But if it's more specialised and more detailed advice, so they get referred to Mariam to talk about the immigration law issues. And within the domestic violence unit, we will be helping people about family law issues. So someone was saying had a client who was left with children, so we can talk about the options around their family law situation. I'll give advice about that. Child support, care and protection, if Department of Community and Justice are involved. Certainly apprehended domestic violence orders, we can advise and help people in local courts about those. Modern slavery offences, so what we mean by that is things like forced marriage, those type of things we can help clients with. And when civil law matters, so legal aid, you might know, is a big organisation. We have a lot of specialist services, including a lot of lawyers who work in what we call civil law matters, which means like housing, debts, fines, Centrelink issues. Well, not so much these clients if they're not eligible for Centrelink, but we can talk about and refer clients for their civil law matters. And also we've certainly had clients as part of this project who have themselves been charged with offences when in fact they are primary victims of domestic violence. So we'd work closely with the legal aid criminal lawyers to help them in those matters. So that gives you a bit of an idea about the legal issues we can help with. And so when I said it was like a holistic service, our aim is to also help people with their non-legal issues. And that is working closely with our internal social workers and financial counsellors, as well as referring clients to those external services I mentioned. And we can help with the filling out the forms and helping people with the Red Cross Financial Assistance Program that we'll be hearing about in a minute. Things like victim services, so people, if they've experienced an act of violence in New South Wales, can apply for financial support and free counselling, so we can assist with those. The SRSS payments, and also housing issues if people need help with that. Emergency relief, risk assessments and safety planning, reporting to police, Centrelink, and also case management and support. So that's the sort of non-legal issues, but adjacent issues we can help with. So I'll now give you, I guess, an example of a a client sort of types of matters we can help with. So this is an example of someone's story who's approached us. So Sanvi contacted Legal Aid asking about potential avenues for permanent residence as her current bridging visa was about to expire. Sanvi experienced domestic violence by her former de facto partner, and there was a provisional AVO in place for her protection. Sanvi had also given her former partner money to pay for a partner visa, but he never applied for it. So she was left with no money. She was unemployed, living in temporary accommodation with a friend. So this is the type of ways that Sanvi would be assisted by the domestic violence unit. So we could talk to her by telephone, and I think shortly, subject to COVID restrictions, we will be providing advice face-to-face at a couple of outreaches. At the moment, that will be, I think it's in southwestern Sydney, but we can let you know about those if that's useful for your clients when they start up again. But otherwise, telephone advice. And I think Legal Aid's also exploring different ways to do video calls with clients, and we can certainly pay for an interpreter to help speak to clients. So how would we assist Sanvi? So we could give her advice in relation to her immigration options and refer her to the immigration team. We'd talk to her about her provisional ADVO and what her options are there and explain what that means. We can also negotiate with her former partner about the money that she gave to him, and explore maybe civil law options around that. We would also refer her to help with those victim services payments I mentioned, as well as counselling, and housing is obviously a major issue for her to get her into some suitable longer term housing. We would also refer her to our financial counsellor to help with emergency relief and working out her budgeting situation. And finally, we would assist her to apply for the Red Cross Financial Assistance Program, which is what we're going to hear about now from Seema. So I think the most important slide for this session, and also this will be in the email that you get after the webinar, is how to refer. So if you have clients in these situations that we've been describing, we encourage you to contact us. So you can email the Domestic Violence Unit at Legal Aid, and this will be in the email you get after the webinar. And we also have a new 1-800 number. So either you as support workers can call our numbers and say you've got this client who'd like advice, or the client themselves can call and we can make an appointment with an interpreter as part of our project. If the client just has questions about the immigration, they can also directly contact the immigration team. But I think as for this particular project, the most common pathway is for people to talk to the Domestic Violence Unit first, but certainly those two options are available. So I'm going to now hand over to Seema to talk about the Red Cross program. But if anybody has any questions about the Domestic Violence Unit at Legal Aid and how we can help, then please type those in. And we've got a question that is a really good segue into, I think, Seema's section. So the question is about, is somebody eligible to apply for the Red Cross financial assistance if they've already received payments from victim services? And my understanding is yes, that's not a barrier. But maybe Seema, you can explain that as part of your session. So Seema, I'll hand over to you now. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Natalie. Just a brief answer to that question is yes, they can apply for FDV financial assistance program. Okay, so I'm going to talk about what this pilot is. Just before I start, the primary focus of this pilot is to ensure that people in crisis and distress, they feel safe and that their immediate needs are met and stabilized by the support that we are providing, the financial assistance that we are providing. And this also then enables clients to be engaged in the legal process and make decisions about their future. And how this program came about was in mid 2021. Red Cross was awarded 6.5 million to deliver targeted support to people on temporary visas who are experiencing domestic, family, or sexual violence. And why we are putting people here, because as part of Red Cross principles, being a neutral organization, that's one of our principles, we are providing support to people regardless of whether they're women or men or from LGBTQI community as well. And what was great about this pilot is that an additional 3.5 million has been awarded to 9 community and women's legal centers, and they are all in different states and territories. So it's a national pilot, and the pilot commenced in May 2021. At this stage, it's a 12-month trial period. And what we are hoping is that we'll be able to provide support to 1,225 people on temporary visa. And we are delivering this program in partnership with local family and domestic violence services, as well as our legal partners in New South Wales. We have got legal aid, and we are very lucky to have this relationship because it's proving really good for clients as well. And this project is building on Red Cross's current expertise and the reach and the systems that have enabled the support for people on temporary visa during COVID time. Hopefully we will be emerging out of it quickly. And, those who have experienced post-marriage or people seeking asylum, sorry. My apologies. And our priority here is to link clients with the localized, specialized, local specialist services. It is not to duplicate any existing services that are there, but rather to bridge the gap between the sector capacity and to establish an initial flow of resources and support to people on temporary visa until they can be taken by the specialist services. So how we are working, the framework of this pilot is that you can see on the left-hand side, we have got FTV services who have been providing support, who continue to provide support to people on temporary visa. And then on the right-hand side on top is the Women's and Legal and Migration Services. And their role is to provide legal and migration advice in this pilot and referral to support services for complex needs, and then also data collection and report. And then at the bottom is Red Cross, and our role here is to provide financial assistance, and also as required, as clients come to us, we refer them to appropriate services. And the pilot has three objectives, as we see. That one is to meet the immediate support needs, and second is to develop an evidence base to map the pilot outcomes, and the third is to build the capacity of mainstream FTV services to work with this cohort to address FTV and to find sustainable exit pathways for them. Next, please. So there has been a change in terms of eligibility recently, and that has been due to the advocacy work that has been done by the National Advisory Group, which is formed of different agencies from each state and territory. And that group also meets regularly, and then we speak to the DSS department directly through that group. And what the change has been is that the minister has agreed to extend the eligibility requirements for temporary visa pilot to include temporary visa holders who are experiencing domestic, family, or sexual violence, regardless of their visa status or eligibility for other government support. Maybe some of you might have referred to Red Cross for those clients who were receiving special benefits, and initially we would be saying no, they can't receive support from this pilot, but that has been the great advocacy work that everyone has done, and that is no longer an ongoing eligibility requirement. So basically, if your client is receiving special benefit, they might be eligible pending the other key assessment consideration, which are that applicant is unable to secure safety because of their FTV experience, or they're unable to pay reasonable and necessary living expenses, or they are at imminent risk of not being able to do so. And the funds are being used to assist people to deal with their immediate crisis. Next, please. So here what I have got is here, the streams of support that we have. If you would have heard us in the beginning, we were having 3 streams previously, but now we have added another stream, which is a stream D. So essentially what it is here is that you will see that under stream A is what is those clients who are referred by the FTV agencies who are providing support to the clients. And Red Cross role here is just to provide financial assistance, and the family violence risk assessment is completed by FTV agencies. So all you're required to do is to fill up the form, which is on our website, and refer the client to us. And what Red Cross would do is that we would complete a Vivo check if it is not included as part of the referral. So if that is already, that information has already been provided, then we won't be doing that. But if that is not provided, then we would be checking that. And what it also means here is that if it's an uncertain status, then we would speak with the client and to ensure that they are receiving legal support. What that means for them in terms of like why their status is uncertain, and that is the case management support that we provide. Then the stream B clients are those who apply to Red Cross directly, or they are referred through networks or community or other agencies. Then the role here for Red Cross is to provide the financial assistance along with the short-term casework support, where our aim is to link them with specialized support, specialized FTV support. And from here on, if we are not able to link to the client, which we have experienced where clients don't want to be linked for their own reasons, then they become our stream C clients. And what we were finding was that there were some agencies which were not particularly classifying as FTV agencies, like multicultural agencies, but they were providing support, and they were providing specific FTV support. And so they are now classified as stream D client. And why we did this change was to ensure that we are not doubling up on casework with the clients, and that we are not asking the questions or doing the risk assessment if it has already been completed by the agency. And it allows for, asking minimum questions to the clients. And next slide, please. So The referrals, as Natalie was saying, is the most important part. So we are receiving referrals through a secure web portal, and that is to ensure that the client data is protected and that the information is shared with full and informed consent. All the information is there on our website. If you, Natalie, do you think you can click on that link for me, please? Okay,
That
it's all
doesn't
right if
seem
it's,
to be working.
yeah,
Yeah, the link will be in the email that people get
yeah,
after the webinar so they
yeah,
can have a look, if that's all right. Thanks,
yeah,
Seema.
yeah, thanks. So just, yeah, I just wanted to mention that, you know, on our page, it's on different, the page is available on different languages. And we have got flyers which are downloadable and shareable on in different languages. And we also have a step-by-step guide for clients to apply online. So how it works is that the agencies, when they're referring the clients, so if an individual is currently supported by a specialist FDB or any other agency, they are required to complete this Red Cross form, and then the client is to attach this form on the on our portal. So they will need an email address, and they will need so that they can be in control of the their documents and the information that they are sharing. The clients would require those clients who are doing it by themselves, they are required, and those who are being referred by agencies, to provide the visa details, upload the financial documentation to facilitate payments, and then also to agree to privacy and consent notice. So that's very important. Again, that is available in different languages for clients. And why we are asking for bank statements is that so that we can ensure that the payment goes into client's account. And we do understand that at times, you know, it might not be possible for clients to do by themselves. There are different ways available on our website. It has been stated that how the clients can do it safely and securely. When you come across such client, you can contact Red Cross, and we'll be able to guide you how you can do that if the info on the website is not clear for you. Now, just in terms of payment structure, so the financial assistance that is available is a client can receive up to a total of $3,000, and the payment structure model, it's a client-centered model. Basically, the client decides how much they want at one point in time, and the need of a client for financial assistance is assessed every time to ensure that the client is still experiencing financial hardship and is a temporary visa holder. So this is a legal and the requirement of funding as well. But as I said, so the client can receive that $3,000 in a lump sum payment, like one lump sum payment, or the client can ask for the payment to be given to them in smaller amounts, where the client is not able to, you know, identify how much they need. So what we can do is that we can trigger the initial payment, like the minimum payment. So you may have a client who comes, you might want to refer, but not sure how much the client wants. When you refer, we can make a payment of $525 if it's single, and for children it's $600. We have made it into you know, fortnightly payments. We can make it, or we can give it as a lump sum. So essentially, if the client decides in a fortnight that they need more, and they can you know, identify the need, what they need it for, that amount can also be provided to the client. Yeah. So these are some of the frequently asked questions that we have come across. So we thought we'll just put it out there. What happens if a client needs more assistance than 3,000? So at this stage, the maximum amount for financial assistance under this pilot is 3,000, and it is not an income support. at Red Cross, we do acknowledge that this is, the need is greater than the amount that is being provided through this pilot. And we have been constantly providing that feedback through our NAG, the National Advisory Group, as well. But as of now, as it stands, it's $3,000 is what the client can receive. And once they have received the $3,000, they won't be able to get anything else under this pilot. In terms of eligibility, do they need to have left the relationship, or would they be eligible if they were still living with the perpetrator? As I have said before, the pilot is for temporary visa holders, and those, I think Natalie and Miriam had mentioned the type of visa categories that are there. So any form of temporary visa holder is eligible. And even if people who are on an uncertain visa status or they don't have any visa are eligible for that. So it is a client-based model. So we understand that it takes time for clients to leave and leave someone permanently. So, and we are providing assistance what is best for the client as per their identification. In terms of the clients who are receiving SRSS or special benefit, for SRSS, we are to assess the eligibility using the key assessment considerations, and the source of any income does not form, is no longer the part of the eligibility criteria. What it means is that if you have got a client who is receiving SRSS, it is up to the SRSS provider to ascertain how it will impact their ongoing SRSS payments. And for special benefits, in terms of, we will see whether it meets the other eligibility criteria. Yeah, so in terms of contact points, I have put in some information there. We do have a phone line, we do have an email address as well. Sorry, Natalie.
So Seema, yeah, I'm just going to jump in here because there are a few questions about this program and we've only got a few minutes left. So
Sure.
I'm just going to ask these questions. So firstly, and this is related to your phone number here, through this, somebody said that accessing the payments through the online system was a barrier to some of their clients. So is there a way clients can apply over the telephone? And I can partly answer that, but through Red Cross, do you want to answer that, Seema?
Yeah, so at this stage, we can't, through phone, we can guide them how to do that. There is a mechanism where what we call as share safe, and we could have clients, if the agency is able to assist client in sending that documentation. So there is a safe way to do that as well. Over the phone, we can guide them how to apply for it.
Okay. And also through, if people get in touch with the domestic violence unit, we are able to assist people to apply for the Red Cross financial assistance package. I know there is a lot of demand, so it might take several weeks, but there is we can help people do that if they need the help with the online application. So do keep that in mind.
Yeah,
and
just wanted to,
yeah.
Sorry, Natalie, just wanted to make one point here. We have a very small team of two people, one caseworker and one support officer. So at this stage, and it is taking longer than what we had thought it to be. So that's where people might be experiencing a bit of a delay there. We do understand that, yeah, it's not what agencies would want or the clients would want, but we have had situations where clients have have come to us and they had not gone before anywhere else seeking support. That has been our experience, and so they're coming and sharing their stories where they might not have done that before, like a year ago if they would have experienced, and they're still experiencing that circumstance. Thanks.
And that's another question, Seema, about how long does it take for people to actually get that money into their bank account after they've first applied or first been in touch with legal aid?
So, okay, if they have from the point of application, because once a client applies, we would have to go through the application. At this stage, it's taking 6 to 8 weeks. We have got a huge, a bit of a waiting list at this stage. Unfortunately, we are trying to work through it as quickly as possible we can.
And that's why we encourage people to contact the domestic violence unit first, because we can also refer them to our financial counsellor. There might be some other emergency relief or other support available. Another couple of questions is, you mentioned, Seema, that this project is to assist people who've experienced sexual violence as well. And is that also available if it's sexual violence outside of a relationship? So I guess this is if somebody's experienced a sexual assault, but they're not, in a domestic violence situation, are they still eligible for support under this program?
Oh, that's a very tricky question. My first instance is it is linked with the domestic and family violence, so it might not pay, but we'll have to assess what exactly the situation was.
Yeah, and again, so thanks, Seema. Yeah, and I'd encourage that person, if that's the situation, to contact the domestic violence unit first, and we can give them legal advice about their options around that. And as we know, like, family violence is very broad. It's not only from a spouse or intimate partner. So get legal advice first, and we can talk about that, I would say. And one more quick explanation, we use some acronyms. Can you just explain what the SSRS is?
Oh, sorry, my bad. It's the Status Resolution Support Services, which is available for people seeking asylum. So when they are, if you come across someone who is seeking asylum, they may be eligible to seek support through SRSS, which is the Status Resolution Support Service, and it is being delivered by Settlement Services International and Life Without Barriers.
Thanks, Seema. And look, I know that you were keen to talk about some other programs from Red Cross, but we are now just on 11 o'clock. So I don't think we're going to have time to do that today. There is information on the Australian Red Cross website. And what we might do is invite Seema back next year to talk more about these projects. Does that sound okay, Seema? I'll leave. Everyone's got the slides, PDF copy of the slides, which does have the information about these programs. But is that okay if we just finish off talking about this project today, Seema?
Yeah, certainly, Natalie. I will just one last point that I wanted to mention was that what you had said. Everybody will receive an email in an hour, and there will be a survey from Red Cross as well. And we are looking for agencies who would have capacity to provide casework support, and that's where we are in need of agencies who can provide that support. So if you could fill that form, that'll be great. Thanks, Nat.
That's excellent. And somebody has asked the question about whether the project has capacity to accept volunteers to help with the workload. So I think that would be filling out this form, because Red Cross is looking for agencies to help support people on temporary visas. Yeah, so do
look out for one.
Excellent. So thank you, everyone, for joining us today. What I will leave you with is this referral information. So do just give us a call if you've got any questions. We're very happy to talk to service providers about whether they should be making a referral to the service. Again, there's the flyers that are attached to this webinar. So a flyer about the referral conditions from legal aid, and also the Red Cross flyer there. So you'll have more information there, as well as in the email that you'll get after the webinar. So look, I mean, I can stay on the line for another few minutes. If people do have final questions, we can answer those. Otherwise, if people do need to leave now that it's 11, we understand that. And thank you so much for joining us today. You will get a little survey popping up, so we're very happy for you to please give us feedback and let us know how we can improve on our webinars. So there will also be a recording of the webinar, which will be available shortly on the Legal Aid YouTube channel. So thank you very much for joining us today. I'll just keep a quick eye out if there's any more final questions. Otherwise, thanks everyone. Thank you, Mariam. Thank you, Seema.
Thank you,
It
Natalie.
was
And thank you,
really
everyone, for
great.
joining.
Sorry about the technical glitch and my camera going off, but I'll try and turn that back on just to say bye now. And
I'll do that
if
as
it's going to
well.
let me, maybe not. But thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. And I'm not sure, Natalie, if there's any questions coming in, but I'm also happy to also stay on if there are any questions come in. I'm happy to answer them.
I'm just checking now. I think we have answered all the questions throughout. Yeah, we're all good. Thanks so much. Thanks, Mariam. Thanks, Seema.
Excellent.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Natalie.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.